Gentlemen, you know this channel is for the extra large man who wants to live his life large and in charge. However, this episode is actually not for you. This episode is for you to show to your skinny or average sized friends to dispute these stigmas and stereotypes. That's what we're talking about today on Big Pretty Man. Hi, and welcome back to Big Pretty Man, the channel for the extra large man who wants to live his life large and in charge. I'm your host, Timothy Big Pretty Crowe. I'm a wardrobe and lifestyle consultant for the extra large man. Okay guys, as I said in one of my other videos, where big men, big people in general, male or female, in our society we live with a lot of stereotypes and stigmas. This is mostly because our culture is very focused on, especially now in the social media era, is very focused on your physical appearance. We've become a very narcissistic and image obsessed nation. You can see this through Instagram and Twitter and Tinder and all of that, where people are more going by the way you physically look than your personality, at least online. I'm like, when it comes to online issues, I put it in the same category as I put reality TV shows. It's not real reality. People still meet, people still, personality and all of that still counts. But we do put up with a lot of the stereotypes about heavy-set people or big people. It is something that we put up with all the time, every day. It's become so massive that we usually are kind of passive about it. We've learned to deal with it in our own coping mechanisms. However, I'm making this video not so much for big people, because what I'm going to say about big people in this video is something we all know. This video is for our average sized friends, or our skinny friends, our skinny acquaintances, our family members, the ones that believe in these stereotypes or these stigmas on some level. So hey, all my big friends, all my extra large size mammal buddies out there, be sure to share this video, send it to your friends, send it to your workmates, send it to anyone that you feel that can have some benefit, and your relationship can have some benefit about what I'm going to talk about. Because I'm really going to talk about 4 things, 3 of which are basic myths about heavyset people. And the 4th one is a bit of advice, and I'm going to get a lot of hallelujahs, trust me, from the big people on that one. Okay, so I'm going to start off with one of the biggest misconceptions that you commonly see in the media and the movies and all of that really ticks me off. And that is that extra large people, big people, fat people, however you want to put it, always eat large amounts of food. This one, that we are like, not only that, but we're like food obsessed. You see this in this stereotype fat guy in so many movies. Couple come to mind. I know I usually think of the movie Meatballs with Larry. Larry had no love interest in that movie. If you've seen this movie, it's from 1979. He has no love interest in that movie. All he thinks about is eating, and they put him in this horrible but funny hot dog contest. He's carrying around all these snacks. He's dying of hunger. It's all he thinks about. It's just this completely one-dimensional character, and we see this all the time in movies and TV shows. Just big people obsessed with food, and that's all they think about. It's completely unrealistic. Heavy people are like anyone else. There's a lot more dimensions to us. We don't just sit around thinking about food all the time. Also, it's not true. Now, yes, there are plenty of big men, big women that eat large amounts, and and I've seen that. But there's also a lot of heavy people that don't eat large amounts of food. You got to understand what makes you heavy is different from person to person. Not just one activity or one thing makes you heavy, makes you gain weight, makes you fat. There are a lot of different factors. I mean, and if you think about it, you may know a heavy person who you get around them or you have lunch with them, and you may sometimes you folks will even make comment, which to me shows that you do have this stereotype in your head. It's kind of a passive way of letting it out. That you're like, wow, you're not eating a lot. You don't eat a lot. Like you expected us to sit down at every meal and eat a friggin' turkey, or a whole ham or something. But the reason for that is, like I said, people get heavy for different reasons. For instance, I'm not I don't eat huge amounts, and I actually don't like sweets. I mean, I don't really, hate them or anything, but, cake and pies and candy and chocolate, I'm not that excited about it, and I can take it or leave it. I'm more of a savory appetite, pastas and things like that. But, it's often not how much you're eating, but when and what you're eating. The amount is only one factor. A good for instance for that, say you have someone who has kind of a soda addiction, which is very common, regular soda. Well, a 2 liter of soda has over 1,000 calories in it. Also, it's made of pure corn syrup. That's the sweetener, and that just turns straight to fat. Now, you're supposed to get about 2,000 calories a day. If you're drinking a 2 liter of Coke or Pepsi or whatever a day, you're adding an extra 1,000 calories onto your diet. So, even if you're eating, you have a person that's eating nothing more but salads and tuna and tofu. If they're drinking soda with every meal, they're going to gain weight. So that's one. Another is there are people that have a kind of an addiction or a hang up with sweets, especially chocolate, and chocolate is high in calorie, high in sugar. That's going to go to fat, especially if you're not a very active person. And of course, and then also you have the times of day that you eat that goes with your metabolism and your energy levels. If you're not getting a lot of exercise and it's not matching with your caloric intake, then you're going to gain weight. For instance, one of my weight issues is that I have a bad tendency to skip breakfast or even lunch, and then I eat a large dinner. Well, that's going, my body's thinking it's starving, so it's going to go straight to fat. That's one of the issues I deal with. And I also had I ain't gonna lie, I had a little bit of a soda addiction myself. Yeah, there's a lot of that in this and all of this. But my point is that those are factors that it doesn't have to be large amounts of food. It's what you're eating and when you're eating. Also, and even though it's used a lot as an excuse, a little way overused, metabolism and genetics and history does play a factor. Some people, I'm one of these type of people that I don't care what I eat. If I don't exercise every day, I'll gain weight. It's just going to happen. And if you think about it, you may be like, ugh. Well, if you think about it, we all know that Shaggy guy, like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, even though I think he was a stoner. But, the guy that just can eat a ton anytime and they never gain weight. They're always thin. That's their metabolism, and they're not even super active or, into sports or athletic or anything. They just have that metabolism that they can, eat these huge amounts and not really gain. Think about the little skinny Japanese guys that are always in the eating contest. They're always these little bitty guys, and they eat these tons of food. So this is a bit of a myth, and to say something to someone who's heavy, be like, oh wow, you don't eat that much. Well, you're just letting them know. That's a passive kind of prejudice. That's like saying to an African American person, oh well, you can't dance very well. I'm presuming that all black people can dance. Trust me, these stereotypes are not true. And I actually knew one black lady that could not dance a lick. So, but, just same thing there. Not all fat people are eating, just sitting down and eating, a pig at every meal. So now the other, in line with that is that the second being, big people are lazy and never get any exercise. Well, that's not true. Once again, it's dependent on your calorie intake. It's dependent on your activity level and what times you're doing it, what times you're eating. There's so many different factors to what makes a person heavy. And I have known plenty of heavy people that are very active. They play softball. And if you think about it, look in your life. Look around. Don't look at like movies and all this. Think about, your life. I mean, do you know a heavyset person who likes to hike, who likes to play football? Football's actually not that physically challenging as far as it's not like soccer where you're running all the time. You're not going to find very many fat people playing soccer. That football, yes. American football, yes. Soccer, no. But you find that. You find a lot of I love to hike. I love to walk. I have a lot of friends who are involved in the Society of Creative Anachronism, who fight in heavy armor using wooden swords, and many of them are very plus-size people. Men like me who are built more for pleasure than speed. So, hunting, swimming, heavy-set people. There are a lot of heavy-set people who are active. Of course, there are a lot that are sedentary. The problem usually with their weight is either it's something metabolic, or they are eating too much, or they have some sort of addiction to something very sugary, or they're not exercising at the right times. Maybe it's something they only do on weekends, but they're sitting at the office eating donuts, or and eating takeout, which is always going to throw weight on you. So, but this, and as far as being lazy. One time in my life, I worked 3 jobs, and I have been a heavy-set man pretty much my entire life. I mean, with only maybe 2 or 3 times in my life for a few years where I got down actually fairly skinny once and average size in another time. But other than about 80% of my life, I've been a heavy-set man. And I've worked 3 jobs, and I have plenty of friends who are heavy-set. I have one friend I work with right now. This guy, will work around the clock if you don't stop him. I have another friend I've known who's worked the same job for nearly 40 years, and this lady pulls double shifts constantly. Sometimes works for days at a time in her job that requires that. And if you look into your life with nurses or doctors or construction workers, you'll see plenty of wide behinds and big bellies that are working hard. So big people work just as hard. You think about it, it's also even more of a physical challenge with us because we're carrying around sometimes an extra person, but yet we're going to work. Yes, there are plenty of lazy fat people out there, heavy-set people, but then there are plenty of lazy skinny people. We all know that. That is just a dumb stereotype that is not true. Simply because we're big doesn't mean we're just shut in, sitting around shoving cake in our mouth. We're outliving life. We may have a weight problem. We may have a dietary problem. It doesn't mean we're outliving our lives. And it doesn't mean that we don't work, and we don't work very hard. All right? Now, this third one I want to go over is particularly important. Guys, please send this video out to these people. Share it. Say, please watch this. And that is, please don't give big people diet and exercise advice. Okay. Let me get in on this one. This is a very layered issue. Now, if it's a best friend, someone that you're very close with, or a family member that you're actually concerned about their weight for their health, that you're worried about them, I can see approaching that person and saying, hey, I'm worried about you. I'm worried about your weight. I'm worried about what's going on. I'm afraid you're going to have a heart attack. I'm afraid you're going to have a stroke. You're worried about your blood pressures, whether you have type 2 diabetes. What's going on? Have you seen a doctor? I'm worried about you. That type of approach with a very close friend. We're talking best friend, someone you've known all your life, or a close family member. That's understandable. But now, folks, for you tertiary friends, or you close acquaintances or work acquaintances, or or to suddenly just start giving them diet advice, to suddenly start giving them exercise advice. Number one, it makes us very uncomfortable. Let's start with one thing. We know that we are fat. Do you think this is a revelation? Do you think you're telling us something we don't know? You're going to look and say, hey, man, you got to do something about your weight. What? I'm fat? When did this happen? I weighed 150 pounds this morning. Come on. We know. You're not saying something that we don't already know. So, you bring it up now as making an issue. And who does this? Think about any other issue with a person. Would you bring something up like that? Would you walk up to a person or a friend and say, that's not a close personal, best friend or family member, somebody you barely know, somebody you work with, somebody you maybe hang out with here and there. Would you look at them and say, you know what, your hair is a mess. It's look at that dandruff and you got split ends. You know what you need to do? You need to go to a barber. Let me give you a number for a barber. It's rude. Think about somebody did that to you. Walked up and said, man, your acne is disgusting. You know what? Have you tried Clearasil? Have you tried washing your face? Have you seen a doctor about this? That's rude. Who does that? And if you do that, you're rude. Stop. If you're lucky you're not getting a kiss from the person. But for some reason, for heavy-set people, for big people just love to try and tell you, about a diet or that you're heavy. And a lot of times it is heartfelt. Other times it's backhanded. They're wanting to just express some sort of revulsion they have at you, and they're wanting to say something. And if you may have noticed, pardon me, you may have noticed when you do this how heavy-set people react. Let me give you a scenario where they're like, man, I was thinking, have you tried what kind of exercises do you do? And I've heard of this, are you getting exercise? Yeah, well, I get out and walk sometimes and things like that. Well, if you've ever tried this certain diet, maybe the Atkins diet, well, yeah, I've heard about that. Maybe I'll give it a try. You start getting these dismissive answers from them. Why? Because we are just wanting you to shut up. We're just placating you till this conversation is over, and you're not getting the cues. And another thing about this is that unless you're a doctor, you shouldn't be giving diet advice. Number one, you don't know this person's condition. They could have a metabolic situation. They could have a thyroid situation. You don't know their eating patterns. You don't know their blood. You don't know anything about their health. And some of the diets that you suggest could actually be dangerous for some of these people. You don't know. Are you a licensed doctor? If not, shut up. You don't need to be giving them dietary advice. Same thing with exercise. You're going to tell somebody, hey, you ought to hit the spin class, and this person's may have a heart condition. You don't know. So. How do you how's the proper way to deal with this? If it is someone that is very close, then yes, definitely approach and do it very tenderly, and it should be only with a best friend, and a genuine concern for their health, and be like, listen, bud, I don't really want to bring it up, and I don't want to be that, address this, but, I worry about you, I'm worried about your health. Are you okay? Have you seen a doctor? Is your, about your eating habits. I'm worried about you I love you either way, no matter what you look like, but I'm worried about your health. I'm worried about you having a heart attack, blah, blah, blah. Same as I said earlier. That approach, and if it's coming from a very close friend, will be taken a lot better. But now if it's just somebody you work with, just accept the person for who they are. They're not sitting criticizing your hair, your clothes, your makeup, and all that. If they are an a-hole. You don't need them around anyway, skinny or fat. and just accept them for who they are. You know, talk about other things. This is not polite conversation for someone that's not you're not intimate with. And also, if you are going to recommend anything to a heavyset person, if it comes up in conversation, please recommend, say, hey, you should probably see your doctor. You probably need to be checked out. That's the only diet advice you should give unless you have a medical degree. Is, hey, maybe you ought to see your doctor. Maybe you ought to get it lined out. But stop this backhanded, have you tried this? Have you tried that? If you eat this certain thing, if you eat that. We're not hearing you. We know all this. And another thing on top of that, and let me give you a little tip. When big people pretend like, oh, well, yeah, I don't know, blah, blah, I don't know, we know, every single one of us, what is making us big, what is making us fat. Don't let us fool you. We're just saying that to placate you in the conversation and because we're uncomfortable with it. And every single fat person knows exactly what they're doing that's making them fat. And if they don't, they really need to go to the doctor. If you cannot figure out what's making you fat at all, you cannot narrow it down, you need to go to the doctor fast. Something's wrong. And that's all I'm going to say about this. So, yeah, stop that. Now, the last one, number 4, this one, I find just, it is that big people are always rejected and are unwanted for dates and intimate relationships. Well, this one is just obviously stupid and is easily observably not true in this world. Walk through a mall, go to a Walmart, walk around in public. You will see heavy-set people with average-sized people or even other heavy-set people in relationships. This one is completely untrue. You always see this in the movies too. The fat person is always the single friend that you never even consider them dating somebody. Or if they do, it's another big person, and they're both food obsessed and they're feeding to each other and all of that. But this is a complete myth. Big people have just as much relationships, have just as much sex and intimacy as thin people. Trust me. Look at me. And I'm going to go into this more in a dating video. But I want you to look at me. I weigh about 330. I'm about 5'8". I have been heavy most of my life. I have never in my life without the company of women. Never. I have dated. I've often dated women, more than one woman. It's got me in a few trouble a few times. I've had girlfriends. I've been married, 2.5 times. The 0.5 it's complicated. But yeah, I have children. I've never, throughout my life, went without the company of women, without girlfriends, without dates. I've never went lonely. I've never went without intimate relationships, and I've always had a active and regular sex life, both married and when not married. And most big people are this way. And no, it's not always great big people. I have dated some very beautiful women. I've dated some average women. I've dated some very beautiful women, very beautiful thin women. I've even dated 2 models in my life. They were way too thin. But, I've dated big people, So this whole thing about, that big people don't date is just an obvious, easily observed myth. Look in your own life. Look around. This is something that's promoted in the media. It's promoted in, in commercials. You see these, big people that can't, they're looking all lonely and desperate. Like I said, it's always the friend in the shows that never has anybody. And look in your own life. How many big people have girlfriends, have boyfriends, that date, This is just not true. Now, are there big people that are lonely? Are there big people that don't have anybody? Of course there are. Are there skinny people, average-sized people that don't have anybody, have trouble getting dates? Of course there are, by the tons. That's the reason the dating services are so active. People are lonely. And it's of any size and shape and any age. But now this whole thing that only fat people can't get dates or can't get intimate is just flat not true. Nor is it true that, all women do not find big men attractive. I'm living proof that's not true. Women, as I said in one of my earlier videos, what people find attractive is based on a lot of different tiers, not just the physical. It's, it's socio-economic, has a lot to do with your personality. I'm going to make a whole video about this for the guys on dating and approaching women. And I'm going to wait for that. But, yeah, so all of these things I've talked about are stereotypes. All of these things I've talked about are being promoted in a very thin related culture. But it's increasingly, we're becoming a nation that's much larger people. And if you think that we're all walking around not dating, constantly food obsessed, and eating, a pig at every setting, you're badly mistaken. That's a cartoon character, not a person. We're people. And we live just as active, fruitful, professional lives as any skinny person, as any average sized person. And if you're not, then you have issues. And, those issues need to be addressed. So, okay, that's my rant on this. Please, guys, big guys, share this with a friend, share this with a girlfriend, share this with a family. Get this word out. Let's end these stereotypes, at least get them addressed. And don't be judged by your size. Be judged by who you are. And use your size to an advantage and put it forward and be big, large, and in charge. And that's what this channel is for. So, keep watching. And, if you're liking what I'm saying, as I've said before, if you like the content, like my big mouth, then please hit this King Henry head with my pretty face. Give me a like and drop me a comment. If you got anything to say on this issue, I'd love to hear it. I do read the comments. I will respond. You can also reach me on Instagram, you can Twitter, or on Facebook. All of that is listed here below in the description. And, I've got a lot more material coming up. We're going to be talking about shoes. We're going to be talking about the color wheel. We're going to be we got a lot of things. We're going to be talking about hats, one of my favorite subjects. So stay tuned. Come back and see me. And until I talk to you next time, stay pretty.